And we're live. Hi, everyone. My name is Robert Cabeca. I'm the chocolate chef, and I am here with Marisol Slater of the Chocolate House DC. Woohoo! And Marisol has owned the Chocolate House for a few years now, and she has taken what was a great store and even made it so much better, and has really evolved the business in so many ways, including putting on the now infamous DC Chocolate Festival. I mean, it's like within the first couple of years, you're getting over 1,000 attendees, and that's really fantastic. So you're really reaching out to a whole new market and getting people to fall in love with chocolate in new ways, and getting exposure for all the people in your chocolate world that you do business with. So I think it's really fantastic. Your energy, your passion, and I'm just really, I really admire you for all that. It's pretty awesome. So, so everyone, this is Marisol Slater. Marisol, why don't you just say hi to everybody and tell them the name of the shop and where you're located and how to get in contact with you and things like that to start out with.
Sure. Thanks, Robert. It's such a nice introduction. My name is Marisol Slater. I've been the owner of the Chocolate House since late 2014, and we are a specialty collection of fine and artisan chocolate from around the world. We're in kind of the Adams Morgan DuPont Circle neighborhood of DC, so 1904 18th Street Northwest. And the store, we're a store that's been around for quite a while, 11, 12 years now. The first owner was Biagio Abatiello, who started the store with a great concept in the early days. And then we had a great second owner, Robert, who I'm talking to right now. And then after getting to work and learn with both of these great people, chocolate people, is when I got to take over the store and keep it going, because it's a special little spot here in DC.
It is a special little spot in DC. The shop has a lot of admirers, in the way that the store was started. The whole story of the store is really fantastic. I'll let you tell more about that if you want, but with Biagio and how he got the idea for the store and what it's taken off into, and each one of us has kind of taken the store to new levels, and you're pushing the envelope, and you're really growing the business, and that's really fantastic. So so why don't you talk a little bit about that, how the store got started initially, and why you decided to kind of take the store over. What passioned you about that?
So the store was started by Biagio Abatiello, and he is a flight attendant, and we travel around, was a chocolate lover, well connected in the chocolate world. He's a real cool guy. And he kind of saw a space for a place where you could buy chocolate like you buy wine. So it's really common to find wine stores, obviously, where you can go, but also there's like specialty wine stores that just have like really fancy wine, or just French wine, or or just their favorite wines. It's just the wines they like. And so he felt like there's an opportunity for chocolate there. That was very early, so a lot of people did not really just had no idea what they were walking into in terms of the store, because it is so focused on bars, and most people are just like, when they think about chocolate, they just think about candy or confections. Right. So he really brought single origin artisan bean to bar chocolate to DC before lots of parts of the countries had never even seen it. There's maybe like one, Robert, you might know, one or two stores in the country, like Biagio, which was called Biagio Fine Chocolate when he opened. So I moved to DC in 2010 to go to grad school at American for development. And at that point, I'd already been researching chocolate for a couple years, the end of my undergrad. I'd actually picked up a little pink book. I think I have it up here. It's at home, but a little pink book called The Chocolate Connoisseur in my college bookstore. Yeah, on Chloe Duterre. I had no idea who she was when I picked it up. I just thought it was pink and it looked cute, and it was on sale, and I needed something to read. And I read it like cover to cover twice in a row. and was like, this is it. So when I came to DC, I already knew about Biagio, already knew about the store because it was one of the few places like period, where you could get a lot of these chocolates. That was before online ordering was really available. And I was really focused on the connection between farmers and makers and the supply chain there. So Biagio, it made sense because I hadn't tried a lot of these chocolates. I'd only read about them. And I just hadn't been around other people who knew about chocolate before. So I just hung around a lot until he was like, do you want to work here? Essentially.
Sampling a lot of chocolate.
Yeah, I was eating a lot of chocolate. I was tasting a lot of chocolate. I was writing about chocolate all the time.
What were you writing about chocolate for?
I was focused on cacao as a commodity. So it was, so it was topics centered around, I was really interested in the kind of difference in the way cacao is treated in Latin America versus the way it is in West Africa, which is where most of the world's cocoa is grown now, and the balance or the relationship between cacao as a cultural commodity in Latin America and as an economic commodity in Latin America, and how that's different in the West Coast of Africa, where it is definitely an economic commodity, but it's less of a cultural commodity because it's not an endemic plant. A lot of people aren't familiar with it beyond just growing it for sale. So there's not a strong cultural connection as much as there is in places in Latin America where it's an indigenous plant and there's a lot of connection to indigenous culture and things like that. So that's where I was interested in. And then the more I learned about small makers, I was really interested in connecting that value chain from farmer all the way to consumer, because I see the store as, if there's no one there educating customers or consumers about the chocolate and why they should buy it, then you can't complete that value chain from farmer to customer. So there's just everything that happens in the middle, all the amazing things that happen in the middle don't matter if the customer doesn't understand why they should buy it and why it's special. So that's where I see the store as being a really important link in that chain.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of the first things that two things that really inspired me about the store, Biagio's store. First was that just a selection of bars. I'd never in my life seen a selection of chocolate bars, fine chocolate bars like that. Sure, you go into the grocery store, you got the typical ones, the Hershey's and the Mars and blah, 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 Cadbury's and Lindt and Nestle and all that good stuff, right? And I'd never seen so much chocolate of this type in one place, and it blew me away. I just fell in love with it immediately. Finding, like you said, finding this kind of chocolate, you had to go hunt for it.
Yeah.
And to be able to find it all in one place was really remarkable. And then, to go up and say, well, I've never heard of this cocoa bean before, or, from this country or what have you, and to get a massive education about it, just right on the spot. That's what I loved about it. And that's what I loved about working at the store as well, is, teaching our clients, exactly, what they're eating, what they're tasting, what's unique about it, what's different about it. The whole education process was really enjoyable, just seeing people light up when you tell them information about what they're eating. It was really cool. Yeah. I didn't know that you were really focused on that kind of study before. So that's really fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what it was that inspired you to really get into the chocolate business, to really go in and take over the store from me. What really, what motivated you to do that? What was like, I want to be a chocolate store owner?
I wasn't sure when I started grad school how I would incorporate chocolate into what I was going to do. Since I have my master's in international development, I sort of figured I would work like in the nonprofit type world or something. And I did do that for a little bit, but ultimately I felt like um, the, the the way that the U.S. does development in other countries, particularly Latin America, it can be problematic. Africa too, of course, all over the world. Sometimes there are some real problems with development. So I wanted to try and find a way to work in that space because it's really important, and also work in cacao. And I started at the end of grad school. I also started to learn a lot about entrepreneurship as a form of development in developing countries. So there are, gaps where the government or NGOs can't really get in there, and you can't develop some places completely from the top down. You need a healthy small business community to kind of help communities build, just grocery stores and shoemakers and mills and whatever. So I started to see the value of small business and entrepreneurship in that way. And then also that translated to seeing the value of that in the US too. I'm from the rural South, so there's a lot of places where small business has sort of died out, and you just have like long chains of Walmarts and Dollar Trees and things like that, which of course there's a space for them, but you lose a lot of the heart of a community without a small business. And it's just a challenge for people to learn what it means, and even how to start and how to do a business. And these are things I didn't know either, because I was coming from a purely academic place. I worked with Biagio, and then I worked with you, and I had so much space and guidance from you, and learning how to run a business just by doing it. Because you gave me a lot of trust and a lot of help, and just, I'm one of those like learn by doing kind of, that's how I'm better that way than like reading a book about it or anything like that. And you were able to kind of just let me do things for better or for worse sometimes, I think. But it was really valuable, because that's where I kind of saw like, oh, I really enjoy doing things versus like writing papers about them. And there are people who are the opposite of me, and we need those people to write the papers and do the research. But even when I worked in a nonprofit, I was like, let's just do it. Let's like get in there. Let's start this project. And they're like, slow your roll. We got to talk about it. So I started to feel, based on my growing interest in how like small businesses can really shape and keep a community healthy and vibrant, and my own kind of feelings about what I enjoyed doing on a day-to-day basis for work. That's kind of how it evolved. And at the time where the store was in transition, and you had given me so much space to learn how to run a store, I felt like, all right, this could be a good time to do this. And it was one of those things that like I didn't plan in advance. I had thought about it for sure. I had done like papers on it and things like that, or like small brainstorming, but I don't think you're ever really totally prepared until you start doing it, and you're like, this is different than I thought it would.
What you do and what you write about are two different things.
Yeah, because when you write about it, you have the benefit of like thinking everything through and like seeing all your problems up front. Yeah.
I mean, and it was great timing for me too, and it's like I had the restaurant at the time, and it was a very challenging time of my life, and I relied heavily on you, and you never let me down, and I really appreciated that completely. I knew that I could trust you implicitly with everything that was going on with the store, and and you rocked it. You did. So I was really pleased when you said you wanted to take over the business. I'm like, yes, it'll have a second life, and it'll keep moving forward. So that was really awesome. What do you find to be the most enjoyable aspect of what you do?
For me, I think it's a lot of um, the time that I spend with customers, either
Yeah.
in classes or really having like those conversations about chocolate beyond just regular stuff. Not that, I mean, that's fine, but the tasting classes are a time where a lot of times people haven't ever been to the store before. It's their first time in the store. They're just coming to a class. They don't know what to expect, things like that. So uh, it's a time where you can really introduce them to, a lot of times, to chocolate and this type of chocolate for the first time. And they really, it's like you can see them be like, oh my God, this is like a whole thing. Um, and though like people get really excited, they really want to like, not only do they want to learn more about the plant and the people and the makers, they also just, they start to like really want to taste everything. Because people have preconceived notions about what they think they like and don't like based on tasting like one thing one time, and they're like, I hated it, so I hate everything that even looks like that thing. So when we do the tastings and we do it blind, obviously, like you don't tell them what it is beforehand, and some people are like, oh, I only eat, whatever, I only eat 70% from Madagascar or something, that's the only thing I like. And then they try like an 85%, or they try 100%, or they try a white chocolate. They're just like, man, I had no idea that I liked this. That part is really great. I also really love interfacing with vendors. I love to meet vendors, especially new makers, talk to them about the products and flavors and what's working, what's not, packaging, selling. I really enjoy like the business to business discussions, and kind of helping, because the store, works with a lot of small makers and a lot of makers that are really new. A lot of times we pull in a wholesale where people just, they're not wholesaling anywhere yet, or they're only wholesaling one other place. And it's really great to kind of be part of their first steps into chocolate and getting out there and getting their name out there. So I really enjoy like the really intimate customer conversations and the vendor to vendor relationships.
Are the chocolate tastings the only kind of classes that you do?
We also do a truffle making class, which I learned to teach from you.
How scared you were the first time.
And those classes are definitely the more popular classes that we do. It's the 2-hour hands-on. So you start with heavy cream and dark chocolate, and you end up with hand-rolled kind of French style chocolates with the cocoa powder on top or around. And people just have no idea that they can do that, like without an entire huge setup. Their minds are kind of blown, and they have a lot of fun with it. Sometimes we have people incorporate flavors. Sometimes people just go do their own, they're just like, they're off doing amazing creative like flavor combinations. Some people like maybe should have been surgeons because they are very, very precise. It's kind of great to see people like, even if people who have a lot of experience baking but haven't worked with chocolate before, kind of figure out how to work that and get flavors in there. And it feels like it seemed, and I like working with chocolate and doing like the hand, painted pieces and printed pieces is super, it's a super specific skill, and it's very hard. But people are always surprised at how good they can make their own truffles at home, just the simple kind of traditional way without all that fancy stuff, like in between and all that stuff. And that you can take like fresh mint and just make a really good truffle at home, things like that.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of your vendors. You touched on your vendor. You loved working with the vendors a lot. What vendors do you have right now do you think are like the most up and coming, that the ones that are really kind of cutting edge, that are really kind of setting maybe a new trend in the artisan chocolate world, as it were?
I have a soft spot for WM chocolate from Madison, Wisconsin. I love his chocolate. I mean, I tasted one. He sent us samples. I tasted one bar and was like, "I want to buy the whole line." It was a 100%. So a lot of times, like 100% can be kind of tough. You know what I mean?
You can tell a lot from 100% bar.
Yeah. There's no sugar, so you're relying completely on the flavor of the bean. You have to get a texture that doesn't taste like, or that doesn't feel like unsweetened baking chocolate. It's obviously got to be edible, you know. Not that everyone, yeah. So not everyone likes 100%, but there's definitely like, and not everyone likes the same style of 100%. But I tasted his, and it was just incredibly smooth and well balanced, and not a lot of, very little astringency or bitterness, really earthy. So I loved that. He also has a bar from beans from India, which was our first India origin. And it's fantastic.
What part of India?
The region or farm is called Anamalai, I think. Anamalai.
You know what part of India where that might sit?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't even want to guess.
Probably in the
I know that
area of India.
Yeah, I have looked at it before, but I don't remember. And if I try, I'll just.
It's all good.
He's great. He's not doing like, different infusions or anything like that. It's mainly, he has the Honduras 100%, a Ghana, a Haiti from the India, a Belize. He does one with red Hawaiian sea salt. That one's great. That's actually great. So I love his stuff. And he's fairly new to us, but we had him about a year. So we have a new chocolate we're going to be doing a tasting on June 30th called River Sea Chocolate. They're out in Sterling, Virginia. And they have River C. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they have some interesting samples that I really liked. They do some single origin. And then they have they have this one that I love. It's a white chocolate with turmeric and like black pepper and spices in it. I'm super into it. It's like a yellow bar. Oh, wow. And I think they're really kind of pushing a lot of great flavors, and they have some with coconut milk. They have one with hemp milk. They're very new, I think less than a year old.
Oh, wow.
Really just like figuring it out in a great way, and like making flavor combinations and infusions that are really good. But that turmeric bar is like, I don't know, I was snacking on that for a long time. And they have a connection to Brazil.
Inflammatory as well, right?
Yeah, there's something there, something good for you. It tastes good.
It's not about the sugar.
No. Okay, that's good. It's good for you. So they're kind of an interesting one. The nice thing about doing the festival is we do every year we pull in some makers that have heard of the festival that want to try it, that we don't know about or kind of are under our radar. There was one this year called Mademoiselle Miel, and she's a beekeeper, and they have some bars, some little confections, but they have this. She gave me a sample before I left for the day because I hadn't had a chance to go to their booth, but it was like a kind of a truffle, a confection, a filled chocolate, and it was completely unsweetened chocolate with raw honey on the inside, just raw honey, like nothing else. And I was like, I had that when I got home that night, and I was like, why didn't I get more of these? I emailed her and I was like, are you wholesaling these? Can I buy them? If you're not wholesaling them, can I just buy like 40 of them? Like, it was the combination of like unsweetened chocolate with the raw, like kind of it's the honey that's kind of like crystallized in there. Gosh, it was just like, it was great. It was great.
Tell everyone her name again.
Mademoiselle Miel. She's in the Midwest. I have to look that up exactly where, but yeah, and they're super nice. And I mean, everyone is super nice. We had some new makers from Ecuador, from Venezuela that were just starting their distribution in the US. St. Paul, Minnesota is where Mademoiselle Miel is.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's just so much chocolate out there. It's hard to keep up.
Well, it's interesting because when I guess Biagio started, the store when it first opened, a dozen years ago, it was, there was a lot, but there wasn't a lot of anything that was good. and it was really hard in some ways to find the artisan chocolate makers who had the capacity to support a retail environment like that, and fast forward now, and it just seems like every month there's like 4 or 5 or more, I don't know, chocolate makers that are popping up at least.
Yeah.
And same issue, I mean, the same problem. Not everything is really superb. There's a lot out there that's edible but maybe not great.
Steep learning curve,
It is.
Yeah. Sometimes you try somebody's chocolate at the very beginning and you're like, not there yet. And then, but 18 months later, it's like they have like worked at it and made a ton of test batches and done it. And it just turns out to be awesome. And a lot of makers are aware, like, especially when they start that they're learning, they want to know, that's the nice thing about this very small niche industry is that I tend to think that it's really supportive for the most part, and makers are out there helping each other and learning from each other. And as a store that focuses on chocolate, a lot of makers are really open to us to talking to them about their chocolate, which is hard if there are things that you think that they should change, because nobody, you don't ever want to be the person who's like, I hate it. But which
you don't
is
tell them, they don't grow, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's not the way I would word it anyway. But sometimes you have to tell a maker like, hey, this bar, like, you might not taste it anymore because you tasted it a bunch of times and it's a thing that you made and whatever. But to me, someone who is tasting a ton of other stuff, this tastes really astringent, or it tastes like you maybe you roasted this too long, or because it's like when you're trying to edit your own papers, you know what I mean? You already know what you're trying to say, so you skip words, you don't see it, things like that. And most makers are really appreciative and excited to kind of hear feedback from a place or a person who's eaten a lot of chocolate, which I guess is just where we are now. And also things like packaging, what stands out to customers. Our store is kind of unique in that a lot of grocery stores, if you get into a grocery store, they put your chocolate wherever. It might be on the bottom shelf. One day it might be on the top shelf. Another day it's next to cheese or pasta, whatever. Or it's at the checkout line. If you see it, you see it. And we really kind of we're, trying to put things in good spots, move them around, see what works. And we also can see like, this packaging just, people aren't literally, they're not even picking it up. Like it doesn't even register with their eyes that they should look at it. And that's tough. Like, and we talk about chocolate and we can guide people to chocolate that we know is good. But there are some makers that have really perfected the visual. And so people will they gravitate towards it and they pick it up right off the shelf. And that can be a challenge because if you're focused on making chocolate, you're not necessarily also a graphic designer, So I really like helping people with that because you want a beautiful product through and through. Design is important as, not as much as flavor and origin and sustainability, but it's a big part of what draws the customer to your product.
So real quick, we have a few minutes left. How do you go through the process of picking out your the chocolate makers that you carry? What process do you use to make those decisions?
A lot of times now we hear about makers from other makers, which is nice because we got some insight already into, they're buying beans from the same origin or they went to a thing together. The festival is a really convenient way for us to meet new makers. And then from there, sometimes we get cold calls, or, people ship a sample, which is also always awesome. And we always have to sample something, it's imperative. Like we can't ever make a decision without sampling. So we have to taste it. And we also, what I usually want to talk to the maker or, you know, whoever the rep is, about the company, where they started, you know, where they're getting their beans, things like that, which at this point, if you're making fine chocolate, like, it's generally single origin. They're generally, you know, super upfront about where their beans are coming from. If it's a confection, you know, you want to know that they're using, I want to know, not necessarily because we're telling the customer, because even the customer doesn't even know to ask, but I want to know, you know, what chocolate are you using to make this? And, you know, are you using what type of ingredients, or kind of what's your philosophy behind this? Why is it different? Is it just like regular, you know, are you making honey caramels with bees that you beekeep yourself, or, you know, things like that. So it's not like there's a hard set of rules. Beyond that, if you're making bean to bar chocolate, you have to know where your beans come from, and, you know, that's non-negotiable. So, and then from there, it's flavor wise, and that part is really, it's hard, because you try not to let your own subjective feelings about what you like in chocolate, because I have my own feelings about what I personally want to eat versus what other people might want to eat. Like, for instance, I'm not a big fan of like the super bright fruit flavors that are really prevalent in a lot of Madagascars, but that is not the norm. Like, people love it. That's a very popular flavor profile. And I can taste it and understand, like, I know when it's good, you know, but it's not like I dislike it. It's not my preference. I like the chocolates that taste like wet dirt and mushrooms, like with smoke.
Which one is? Name one of those.
I think they're discontinuing it, but Michel Cuisel's Maralumi from Papua New Guinea is really awesome for that. A super good one. Another kind of good smoky one is the Pralu Sao Tome. Amano's Miro, another Papua New Guinea that's like a good mix of like a little bit of fruit with some smoke. With some earthiness. It's a good one. So I try to be, you know, I evaluate the chocolate just for general quality and for interest, I think is kind of how I would say it. Like, is this interesting? Does it meet like a base level of quality? And then beyond that, are the flavors well developed? Is it interesting? Is there something about it that's going to call to customers? Because unfortunately, we have a limited amount of space in the store. And things change, and we pull new things in sometimes, and sometimes things leave for a bit and come back. We get more stuff at the holidays, less stuff during the summer. But for the most part, you know, it's trying to think about what is going to be interesting to consumers, and what can we really tell the story of and sell well. And sometimes you think something's going to work and it doesn't. Conversely, sometimes I think something's not going to work and it super works. So it's all about, you know, trying as much chocolate as possible, I guess.
It's a good thing about chocolate, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to make decisions about people's like thing that they've put their heart and soul into. Sometimes, I mean, it's a tough spot to be in when you're just like, you know, not sure, you're on the fence. And
but if you carried every chocolate, you know, because you feel that way, you'd have a lot of chocolate that
didn't sell. Yeah. So you have to be honest with people, but I also like to try it with customers. I like to try it, like, let customers try it too. Sometimes I'm on the fence about something, and you have a bar that someone dropped off, and you have a customer that you know really well and has a good palate. You can just be like, hey, you want to taste something? Tell me how you feel about it. Because they're fresh too. Like, they have their own flavors, and they might be like, you know what, I really think this T1 or this whatever, this origin, it works for me. I like it. And I'll be like, maybe we'll try it. I mean, what's, you know, try it and see, and it could fly.
Well, I think that's one of the benefits of you having, you know, educated customers. You have a lot of educated customers. that really come in and they know now what they're talking about because they've been customers of the store for many years. They keep coming back. There's some customers that come every week,
Yeah.
some that come once or twice a month, but there's a lot of regular customers that come in, and I know you continually educate them, and they have a passion themselves for learning more because it just continues to broaden their horizons in chocolate. And to be able to rely on your customers for that as well, it's like not to rely on them, but to make them part of the experience, is really fantastic.
Yeah, it's good to see the community of like chocolate eaters and knowers.
A lot of happy people in the chocolate field, isn't there?
I would say so. Yeah, for the most part.
So, well, we're out of time here. I want to just kind of wrap up, but before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to, anything else you'd like to add? Anything you would like your raving fans to know about you or the store? Anything that's upcoming? Any upcoming promotions that you have coming up, or tastings or anything?
We do have a couple tastings this month, actually. The return of Sample Day, which kind of went away for a while, but we're bringing it back for the summer.
Sample Day is awesome.
Sample Day is great. It's something that Biagio started as a way to get people in the store tasting bars they might not normally taste, or they might not normally gravitate towards. It can be kind of an undertaking for us, as you know, but I've always loved it. It's kind of something that drew me into the store at the beginning. So we're doing that. That's the 23rd. It's a Saturday. It's always Saturdays. A lot of times we try to do it the third Saturday of the month. This month, because we have 5 Saturdays, so it's the 4th Saturday, but it's the 23rd from 3 to 6. And then the following Saturday is our tasting with River C. So Chrissy and Mariano are going to be here talking about the chocolate and their kind of journey from like corporate DC stuff to chocolate makers, which is really cool. They're really fun, sweet, like interesting people with good chocolate. So it's a good time. Father's Day, obviously, June 17th. Dads love chocolate too, not just moms, which we have to remind people of, not all dads want to grill and stuff, some just want to eat chocolate. But yeah, we have some, we're trying to do these events through the summer to bring people in. We have frozen hot chocolate during the summer, which people seem to be pretty excited about. We did it for the first time last summer, so we're doing it again this summer. And I'm biased, but I think it's a great summer drink. Really pretty. It's really cool because it's got like the chocolate kind of syrup design on the outside of the cup, so you can see it. So it's fun, it's fresh, it's cold.
I'm on your side with that, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm normally not a frap type of drinker, but it's actually, I have to stop myself from making, like when I make somebody for someone, try not to make a double batch for myself. That's really good.
One for them, two for you, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's dangerous in here surrounded by chocolate. But yeah, I think, for people, just keep in touch with the store. Where we have a class and event calendar that's up, and then we'll also be posting about these
on your website, right?
Up on the website, yeah. We'll be posting about these things on social media too as well. So try to stay updated there as much as we can. We're a small team, but
Yes, you are. But a pretty amazing team, if I do say so myself. When I popped into the store the Friday before the festival, and oh my God, I can't remember
Carlton.
Yes, he was amazing. And I got to sample some new chocolate that I hadn't seen of before, and it's fantastic. I love being in the store. I love being surrounded by chocolate. Everywhere you turn, there's chocolate everywhere. It's just fantastic. And one is just better than the next almost. It's phenomenal. But I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day for the interview, and to letting everyone to get to know you and why you love what you do and your love for chocolate and how you're pushing the envelope of the chocolate world. You know, you're on the cutting edge there, letting everybody, you're letting everybody kind of see what's new and exciting. And that's fantastic, giving vendors the opportunity to really showcase their products, you know, so I commend you on that a lot. So,
well, thank you for interviewing the store and me. If you can't tell, Robert and I are pretty good friends. My former boss. But yeah, no, we're both chocolate lovers. It's such a great industry. I mean, from obviously eating chocolate, which is delicious, but being part of an industry that has so much impact, from consumer and like the joy that people have from just eating chocolate all the way down to this ancient plant that we've been eating for 3,000 years on this continent. So I'm happy to talk about it and share with you about what's going on right now at the store.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to what's coming next. And next time I'm in DC, I'll be stopping by as usual. And thanks so much and have a fantastic day.
Thanks.